Hello, everyone, and welcome to another virtual investor event hosted by NZX. Thanks for joining us. My name is Doug Graham, and I'm with the Capital Markets Origination Team here at the Exchange. We've got 4 companies today to present, and very excited to get going. I'll just do a quick recap of the format before we get started. Each company will go for 15 minutes, then followed by 15 minutes of Q&A. They'll have presentations up on the screen. Some will, some won't. You can ask questions through the chat box on your webinar, and we'll filter those questions in. I'll try and ask the presenters the questions after the presentation's over for a few minutes, and whatever we don't get to, we will send out along with the recording of the link that you could watch again. And that is it. So we can just get started. I'll just start by saying we've got the 4 companies we've got are Meridian Energy, Third Age Health, My Food Bag, and Heartland Group Holdings. So we're going to get started with Meridian, and we've got Mike Rohn, who's the Chief Financial Officer at Meridian. Mike's been CFO at Meridian since 2019. His team is responsible for the finance, strategy, risk, and procurement functions at Meridian, and he's been with the company since 2006. Before that, worked in the US in a lot of energy trading roles, and also in New Zealand in the electricity sector and in banking. So with that, Mike, I'll jump off the screen and turn it over to you. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining.
Hey, Namihi, Doug. Appreciate that. And tēnā tātou, everybody who's joined the call this morning. Hey, I'm learning to work this technology. As Doug mentioned, I'm going to talk to Meridian Energy over the next 15 minutes. It's a fascinating business that's to become a bigger part of the New Zealand economy over the next 15 or so years, as you'll see from my presentation. We also have some amazing assets that do form the backbone of our electricity industry, and we operate out of some incredible environments, as you will also hopefully see as I step through these slides. So I'm going to start with the New Zealand electricity market, and there are a few things that I hope you glean from this slide. Is first off, before electricity reaches your home or your business, there are a number of elements that it must pass through, and actually getting it to your home or your business is a reasonably complex undertaking. Meridian Energy participates as a generation business. So far left of the diagram at the top of your screen, we are one of the larger generators in New Zealand. In fact, we're the largest, as I'll talk to in a second. And if you work your way through the process of getting electricity to your home, you will see that it goes through transmission wires, distribution wires, and then is retailed to you. Meridian also participates as an electricity retailer. If you jump to the bottom of that slide, and I'll start on the right, annual generation, you can see that Meridian is about a third of the market, and New Zealand's incredibly blessed in that we already make around 85% of the electricity that you receive renewably. If you look at the pie chart on the left, it'll give you a sense of who consumes and what energy is consumed in New Zealand across the various sectors. So you've got residential, commercial, agricultural base, industrial, and the New Zealand aluminium smelter. Meridian makes up about 23% of the retail market. If I step into Meridian itself and skip through these bullets while guiding you to the pretty picture of New Zealand, Meridian is New Zealand's largest electricity generator. All the energy we produce is from renewable sources. We've got 7 large hydro power stations. They're in the South Island. You can see them in the schematic. The Waitaki Basin is where we have a large majority. There are 6 power stations there, Oho through to Waitaki Power Station, and we generate out of the Manapodi Power Station, which is right at the bottom southwest corner. We have 5 New Zealand wind farms across New Zealand and constructing our 6th wind farm, which is You'll see it's called Harapaki. It's in the Hawke's Bay on that map. We're also one of the largest retailers of electricity in New Zealand. We've got 360 odd thousand customers, and we're currently focused on building our generation pipeline, so adding new generation sources to the New Zealand electricity market. We are a large business. We've got strong investment grade credit metrics. We've got an incredibly experienced leadership team and board, and of course, the government holds 51% of our business. We're also purpose-led. What does that mean? It means that everything we do within our business will be driven by this purpose statement, which, as you can see, says clean energy for a fairer and healthier world. It governs our activities. We only make energy, as I mentioned initially, from renewable energy sources, and being a major retailer in New Zealand, that brings a range of social obligations to the table that we manage and ensure that we meet very well. Now, this slide, while it talks to a little bit of policy and regulation, and I don't want to bore you with some of the bullets, I won't talk to them specifically, but I did want to talk to a key fundamental building block for how and what will shape the New Zealand economy in the coming years. Is if you look at the graph on the right side of this slide, you'll see that New Zealand's average annual emissions of carbon dioxide over the past, I'll say 9 to 10 years, have been just under 80 million tonnes. That is will change and needs to change for New Zealand to meet both its commitments to the Paris Accord and to meet the emissions reductions plan that has been set out by the government and legislated. And what you'll notice from the bars on the right for the 22 through 25 and then the subsequent 5-year periods after that is, in total, emissions must reduce reasonably materially or quite materially to meet those reduction ambitions. The second thing that you'll notice is the reductions in our economy, or the reduction in emissions in our economy, must come from sectors largely other than agricultural emissions. Now, what that means is reasonably large changes to the structure of the way that our economy will work to meet its average annual emissions targets. There's a lot in there, so I'll say that again, is the New Zealand economy is going to change fundamentally over the next 5 to 15 years to meet legislated targets and meet its global commitments as they relate to the emission of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And to put it simply, is the way that the economy will do that is the majority of economic output will convert to use electricity. And the reason it will convert to use electricity is electrical sources of energy have very low levels of CO2 emission, whereas large sectors of the economy currently use fossil fuels to make their industrial goods, products and services. So they will, over the next 5 to 15 years, they will drive the conversion of fuel that they use to support their businesses. They will connect into the electric system, and that will drive the emissions reductions that you see on the right-hand slide. The key feature used to incent all participants or all businesses in New Zealand to do that is the emissions trading scheme. There is a price for carbon that is being presented to anybody who does emit carbon dioxide. And what that will do is, if I jump to the next slide, is that means that the electricity sector in New Zealand must prepare for material growth in electricity consumption, and that's what's shown on this slide. So those changes in our economy driven by legislation will mean that the electricity sector must produce more electricity to support the way that our economy works. And this slide shows that. So on the vertical axis far left is, you can see electricity consumption in terawatt hours, and the bottom axis, the x-axis, that's just time. So time through 2050. And if you see where the blue line on that graph intersects with the red line that slowly gets larger in terms of where it might take us, is that's about where we are today. And as you can see, through 2050, the first thing from that slide is that the New Zealand electricity system is likely to, or may, double in size. Anything from half to doubling in size between now and 2050. And as an electricity business, our job is to ensure that we meet that growth. So there are two bars that I draw your attention to, which is Meridian's commitment to helping meet that increase in consumption. There's a 7x7 bar, or 7 and 7, and a 20 and 28 bar. What that means for our business is that we must, over the next 8 or 9 years, we must develop 7 new generation assets to meet what we expect electricity consumption to lift by. And if you push that over the longer term, so through 2050, is we must develop 20 new assets over the remaining, or the 28 years through between now and 2050. So our business is massively and entirely focused on being able to grow the way our economy needs us to grow, to ensure that we supply electricity into the New Zealand marketplace. And this slide sets out some of the developments that we intend to progress to ensure we do just that. And if you look at this table, there are 3 technology types. There is solar, which is at the top in the green bar. There's wind, which is in the middle blue bar, and then there's batteries. And Meridian will invest in all 3 types of technology. You can see, in fact, the first one is a battery at Ruakaka. We're already developing that, and that is being constructed. If you step to the next, there's a solar site that will go right alongside, so it'll be situated at the same location as the battery Ruakaka, which is just by Marsden Point. For those who are wondering where Ruakaka might be, is just by Marsden Point up in Northland. Then we're intending to develop a wind farm in the Wairarapa, that's Mount Munro, and beyond that, we've got a slew of assets that you can see over the next 10 years and beyond that will help us meet that ongoing need for electricity in New Zealand. So we have put a lot of effort, time into constructing what we call a development pipeline that will enable us to meet the growth in electricity consumption that we expect. And I'll leave you on this slide before handing back to Doug. Is Meridian is obviously a scale business. We do represent 1/3 of the New Zealand electricity market currently. We have quality, high scale, or large scale assets. We have high free cash flows, strong credit rating. We're a BBB+ rated entity. We have a very flexible balance sheet, which will enable us to invest in those assets that I mentioned while maintaining dividend. We have very strong growth outlook, which is what I've really tried to talk to today. And we are focused on meeting that ambition that I have mentioned. So Doug, I might hand it to you to take any questions that people might have.
Sorry, I was just muted there. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. So I have a few questions, and they're good, all related to kind of the same topic, which is pretty interesting. You talk about the fundamental changes in the economy and the consumption increasing on the electricity side. How do you guys, or do you guys account for climate-related events that we see going on in the world kind of affecting your ability to provide that, even with the wind, solar, and battery projects you mentioned? Are these big events something you guys factor in and figure out ways to work around if they happen?
Yeah, we do, Doug. We do. So we run sophisticated forecast models out through 2050, because we do own and run assets that have lives of 20, 30, 40. Hydro assets have lives of 100 years, and so understanding the conditions that they might face is particularly important to us. And we also, what we do is we produce, alongside our annual report that was released last week, we also release a report which is known as TCFD report, and that captures our climate-related disclosures. And in that report, we specifically point out how those changes in climate will affect or may affect our asset base. The two that I bring to people's attention that are captured in that report, it's publicly available for everybody. So anyone on this call who wants to go see it can grab it. The two, though, that I'd mention are, one is a good one, which is, as the globe warms up, we actually expect more water on average to flow into the South Island hydro catchments. So we'll be a beneficiary of that. Those who originally sited the assets did a very good job of placing them where they are. So that's a good thing, I think, for investors and for the country. The second thing is we expect the size of weather event to grow. So anyone who's looked at any media will know that the size of the events that we face around the globe have grown in significance and scale, and we expect that in New Zealand. What we do is we feed that forecast, the scale of storm that we might face, back into our asset management practices, so that our assets will be capable of dealing with the weather that does get literally thrown at them. So we feel we've got both the guidance, we present the challenges to investors, and our assets are in good shape.
Nice, thank you. There are more questions. I will just do one more, and then we'll send you a few, and then for all of you who have asked, we'll get them out to you. What are your expectations or forecasts for electricity prices on both the commercial and residential side looking like in the next, say, 5 years?
Well, it's a good question. I wish I had a crystal ball. What I can say, what I will say, I won't look forward because it's always tricky to do, but what I will say is that two things. One, residential prices in New Zealand have actually fallen since 2013 in real terms, so that if you had the same dollar as you had today back in 2013, you'd be paying less for your electricity today than you were back then. Even though electricity prices have risen, they've risen below the rate of inflation, is what that says. So New Zealand residential consumers are actually better off today than they would have been back in 2013. And the stat that backs that up is, back in 2013, the percentage cost of electricity as part of the average income was about 2.4%. So that's kind of what got taken out of your take-home pay back in 2013. It's now about 1.8%. So electricity as a portion of the bill has gone down. Anyone who does want to look at forward prices, so the best place to look is the ASX runs a futures exchange for New Zealand electricity products, And what that does is it does produce forward prices. Now, they're not directly equivalent to what you would pay at home or for your business, but they do give you an indication of what prices might do as compared to today. So the electricity or the Australian Stock Exchange runs an electricity futures page for New Zealand electricity products, and they present a series of prices for 23, 24, 25, and 26.
Awesome. Awesome, Mike. Thank you very much. Great presentation. We really appreciate the time, and we'll get back to you with more questions for sure, but thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks, everybody.
So now we will move on to the next company, and we've got Third Age Health, and hopefully Tony Y will be popping up here in a minute, but we have Tony from Third Age Health. There he is. How you doing? Oh, you might. Oh, nice. So I'll just introduce Tony quickly, and he can tell you about Third Age Health. Tony has a very long career in healthcare and was interim CEO and GM of corporate services with ProCare Health, which is New Zealand's largest primary healthcare provider. Before that, Tony spent many years with Atlantis Healthcare Group as COO and Managing Director of New Zealand, and he holds a number of advisory and governance roles relating to the disability sector, health IT, and health consulting. So Tony, thanks a lot for being here, for the patience, and I will turn it over to you and join you at the end for questions. Thanks.
Fantastic. Doug, can I just check, is my presentation showing up on the screen?
Yep, it's all looking, yep.
Great. Well, kia ora koutou, everyone, and thanks for hosting me today. My name is Tony Wise, as Doug, you mentioned. Been involved as the CEO of Third Age Health the last couple of years in the role. The organisation listed back in 2021 on the NZX, and I came on board as Chief Executive about half a year after the listing of the company. We are a primary care provider, and in much the same way as you do when you go to a doctor, a GP in the community. We're funded by government on one side. However, rather than being funded by you privately, we're funded by our aged care clients under their contract as well. So we have two contracts. Our clients in the aged care sector include brands such as Ryman's, Heritage, Ultimate Care, Oceania, and others involved in the care sector. Operating for over 10 years now, and Bevan Walsh, who is our founder, remains as a board director on our board. So over the last couple of years, the company's been undergoing quite a major transformation, mainly to diversify its client base, expand nationally, and strengthen our value proposition for future growth. This includes operating a number of traditional GP clinics, as well as moving into retirement village settings and developing our own digital tools to enhance overall care. So before Third Age Health started, the traditional model of service for aged care had been a doctor. You might have seen them in the community, in your local GP clinic. You or your family member might have been admitted into a care home, and that doctor was looking after that individual moving into a care home. And that had been the model for quite some time. Back 10 years ago, we decided to operate a more corporate style dedicated practice model, looking like taking over a whole facility, and rather than having multiple doctors running around looking after a handful of patients actually each, we look after the whole service for all the residents involved in each of the care homes that we look after. That obviously helps to deliver a better comprehensive care team for the facility, the nurses and carers, as well as actually making sure that residents and care are looked after really well. As you can see here, we operate nationally, and although we're relatively small in comparison to some of the other companies looking to present today, we are the largest of our model in New Zealand. There's approximately 700 facilities around the country at the moment, and we've been growing to look after now about 12% of the country's aged care, and that's significantly lifted over the last couple of years. And we also look after 7 general practice clinics at the moment, with 7,500 people who are 65 and over in those clinics from our older people's perspective. So the aged care side has grown close to 50% in the last 2 or 3 years. Our practitioner clinical team, which is a key part of our resources, has been a lifeline resource model for us. As you're probably aware, there is workforce challenges around not enough doctors, nurses, and other health professionals in the country. However, we do have a number of attraction programs, and we do deliver a level of training and education micro-credentialing to help support doctors and nurse practitioners to be delivering better care in the work which we do. And we've been heavily investing in around scalable systems at this time as well. So just to give you a little bit about the sector, I mean, a lot of this will be known to a number of you. We have been looking at the health of older people, and in regards to how New Zealand views health of older people, it usually starts at age 65 and over. However, the more acute setting which we operate largely in today, which is the 85 and over category, as you can see here, that the population projections, like very much most of the world, is going to go through quite a large aging demographic change and shift, and we're looking at well over doubling of the number of people who are going to be 85 and over, and a significant increase in those proportionately in New Zealand being looked after who are older at the time. If we look at the statistics delivered by Te Whatu Ora or Health NZ, as well as the Ministry of Health, some of these really highlight the challenge and the opportunity as well in relation to what we deliver here at Third Age Health. About $1 billion is spent on aged care today, and on top of that, we've got a level of community funding and private pay funding as well in there. We also have a large proportion of our overall healthcare spend in hospital, which is focused around those who are 65 and over. That does contribute to a large extent of our healthcare spend for the larger makeup that we actually have. One of the big shifts to highlight as well is that the recent announcements and the changes happening in the health reforms, there's been quite a large focus around lifting up life expectancy for those who are viewed as being fairly vulnerable, which have actually had a huge focus around Marion Pacifica. And we do see increased funding, which we're investing in quite heavily in areas to deliver more services to those who are in that vulnerable high needs, what we call high needs population, to help them support improving life expectancy around New Zealand, as well as actually improving quality of life over time in there. So when we look at the metrics for Third Age Health, we have had a significant level of growth, mainly in the last few years based on a combination of organic and acquisitional growth. These are our patient numbers. We have an enrolment mechanism where we enroll patients into our care as a provider of care across different settings, and you can see there that we've lifted that up to around about 24,000 individuals who are being looked after by a Third Age service at the moment across New Zealand, and that's continuing to keep growing. The acquisition side looks like a number of practices which we required, and we did start 2 during the period as well. One more recently, which was announced around a retirement village new service for independent living residents, which we started off in July. A large part of our organic growth, especially in aged care, has been driven by a focus on quality improvement, use of Kaizen. We've become a finalist for the Kaizen Awards just recently, and a level of digital transformation and a focus on clinical education and quality in what we deliver in there. And that's been a big feature of the level of investment and change which we've actually made in the last 2 to 3 years. So what that looks like on our financials, there has been a significant shift coinciding with the changes which are taking place in that 2 to 3 year period. Healthcare unfortunately went through a bit of a rough patch. However, the COVID funding did deliver, like with other healthcare providers, a level of revenue and earnings boost in the 2019 through to 2022 period. A lot of that has now tapered actually off, and with 2023 reflecting a large amount of investment, as well as actually looking at acquisition of clinics and integrating them into our overall business. We're seeing 2024 with our latest Q1 results extrapolated out for the full 12 months, having a much stronger performance for the full year 24 period. And we're continuing to see that for the remaining part of FY24 to March 24, that we will have level growth with a number of new facilities and cost savings planned to contribute to that future earnings growth. So these are the highlights that were released with our FY23 annual report, which occurred a couple of months ago. I won't go through these in detail now, but you can access these on our website or the NZX. Like we've highlighted here, we are a strong business. We're well funded and resourced with a great set of fundamentals for growth. We are largely a dividend stock. Our dividend payout policy is 75% of current earnings after tax, and with the change in our payout policy to quarterly now, you can see there that the earnings lift is coinciding with the dividend lift as well. One of the aspects of health which you might not be familiar with, and is largely a balanced scorecard viewed by most healthcare systems as well as healthcare providers, is what we call the quadruple aims of health. It's got a key focus on these 4 elements. More importantly, we are looking at better population health or clinical outcomes for those under our care. We're looking at ensuring that the clinician experience is actually improved and continuing to improve over time. The patient experience and what they experience with the service is lifted, and value from 2 elements, one being a value for money for those who are funding care, and the other was others for funding return for those of you who are looking to become shareholders or shareholders today of 3rd Age Health. That's been a big focus of ours within 3rd Age Health. The team's been really committed with recognition that 2 to 3 years ago, we had realised we were suffering quite a bit from a level of churn. We had a number of facilities and practitioners with a high level of turnover, and as you can imagine, there's quite a high transaction cost when we've got a fairly recurring revenue and growing revenue and earnings base with the facilities that we take on board, specifically on aged care. And pretty pleased that in the last 2 years, we've managed to reduce down that churn rate from our client side by nearly 2/3, and the churn rate from our practitioner end by 20%, whilst increasing our overall facilities served and lifting up the number of enrolled patients on board. One of the key areas of focus specifically, which I've taken on board, is trying to really improve our reputational score. We do Net Promoter Score surveying every year, and we've had a 5-fold increase in our Net Promoter Score in the last 12 months, which I'm pretty proud of, which the team's achieved. So look, I'll finish there, Doug, and thank you for hosting me today, and looking forward to some of the questions later on, and looking forward to some of you join as future shareholders of the company.
Thanks, Tony, appreciate it. Thank you. So there are a couple questions, and the interesting questions are all around, and we'll just do kind of one topic, but the theme seems to be, what do you do, or to what extent does the I guess shortage of nurses, doctors, and impact your ability to kind of go out and get new facilities, and are you dependent on visas and getting residencies granted and all that stuff, and does that slow down your, I guess, your prospecting efforts? And to offset that, are you more focused on maximizing the profitability of existing accounts, and how do you kind of go about and balance those 2 things?
Yeah, sure, mate. I mean, there's a holistic approach around that balanced scorecard model. We see that the service that we provide is a critical piece of infrastructure service going forward, and it's been recognised by not only our funders but also our clients that they're wanting to continue on service and have continuity of what we call continuity of service going forward, which is an improved part. So they don't want to be shifting around facilities to another provider if we can't service. So we have got a large program of work to recruit and attract new practitioners, including training of nurse practitioners. You'll notice that in one of the previous slides I showed, we do use not only GPs but also doctors. We have a lot of word of mouth referrals, and we do pay a bit of a premium across our group for our GPs and nurse practitioners that we have in the field compared to traditional general practice. And that's been a key feature of how we deliver our service. It is a more complex bit of work, but I think the balance there between trying to make it easier for them, as well as actually helping support the conditions and actually trying to identify and help support them in areas of geriatric medicine, which is a growing interest for a lot of them, has been, well served by getting a lift in those practitioners in there. But going back to the original question, Doug, it is a challenge. We do find that, trying to unpick practitioners who want to work in a more mixed model, it can be a bit challenging to find them, but once we've opened up into a new market, that's a new region around New Zealand, it's been relatively easy to start building upon that with word of mouth referral and good feedback on it.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it. And we'll get some more questions to you and then out to the listener as well. But thanks again for putting the slides together and joining us. Really appreciate it.
Lovely. Thank you all.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And now we have, hopefully appearing here, will be Mark Winter from Third Age Health. Hopefully we'll have some slides up there shortly. They're probably just transferring over the screen. We'll just wait here for 1 second. I will just go ahead and introduce Mark while he's getting ready. We've got our third presenter here is My Food Bag, and presenting today is Mark Winter, the CEO of My Food Bag. Mark's brings a depth and breadth of experience across a lot of industries, including FMCG, and just trying to see if he's on. Mark, are you there? Let me see here. We may have lost him. I'm not sure if he's been technical difficulties. Just quickly to continue that, Mark was the CFO at My Food Bag prior to becoming the CEO. He was CFO from 2019 to 2022. Prior to that was the controller of Fonterra Brands for 3 years, and worked at Fonterra prior to that as well, back starting in 2015. And Mark is hopefully getting connected here, and we can turn him over. If not, we'll jump over to Heartland Group and come back to Mark as the next presenter. So bear with me 1 moment. We'll see what we've got here. Okay, so I think Mark is going to join us later. Is Jeff on by chance? And we can go to kind of reverse the order here. Oh, there's Mark. Hello.
Hi, how are we? Sorry, Doug, I was running a few minutes late. Let me jump back to the start.
We jumped the gun a bit, so yeah, sorry for any hassle there. So I've just kind of given a quick bio and your background as CFO, now CEO. So I'll turn it over to you, as I'm sure everyone's excited to hear about My Food Bag, and you can take from here, and I'll come back after to ask a few questions.
Awesome, thanks, Doug. Well, tēnā koutou katoa. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to the NZX for this opportunity to present to retail investors, and to those of you that are online today, a warm welcome and thank you for listening. As Doug's just introduced, my name's Mark Winter. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for My Food Bag. I've been in the business for around about 4.5 years, and in November last year, I stepped into the CEO role. In terms of today, what I wanted to do was just give a little bit of background on My Food Bag and talk through the business itself. I then wanted to touch on performance and give an overview of our historical performance and also within our most recent financial year. And then I wanted to talk a bit about growth and our focus around growing active customers before opening it up for your questions. So turning now to My Food Bag and providing a bit of a background about our organisation. So My Food Bag is a well-known and loved New Zealand consumer brand. Over our 10 years, we've interacted with over 300,000 different customers, And through that experience, we have been able to provide them a range of recipes with our culinary expertise, one of our core strengths. We're a business that has a nationwide supply chain, able to deliver to in excess of 86% of New Zealand's population. And we've got picking and packing technology within our assembly sites that allows for quite a lot of scalability. We're also a business that has performance and brand marketing capability and our own bespoke technology, which allows us to, again, be able to scale our business and provide innovative solutions to our customers out there. In terms of our business model, we currently have a business model that operates on a weekly cycle. Our business is asset light, and the way that our business model is organised allows for a negative working capital cycle. So just to touch a little bit on that business model, the way it's currently organised is that by midnight on a Sunday, our customers have placed an order for the upcoming week. They've made a selection from the 60 different recipes they have available to them, and they've selected the delivery day on which they want their meal kit to arrive. On a Monday, we interact with our suppliers and issue purchase orders based on that demand that we've received, and we also collect the cash from those customers. Over Tuesday and Wednesday, we begin to receipt the goods that we've ordered from our suppliers. And by the time we get around to Thursday, we start picking and assembling the meal kits based on those goods that have arrived. We source locally. We put real emphasis on that. That is part of our DNA. And we interact with over a couple of hundred local suppliers to fill our boxes in terms of ingredients. Through Thursday, Friday, and even into Saturday, we're picking and packing our boxes. And they're organised based on the demand curve in terms of when that distribution is to incur. So the boxes that are to be delivered to customers on Saturday are the ones that are first packed on Thursday, for example. Based on that, we'll start to dispatch from our sites as early as Friday evening, and that'll be shipped around the motu to our different customers. And those deliveries will take place through Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. On Sunday, we have a bespoke network available where we can give our customers 3-hour delivery windows, and we partner with New Zealand Post to provide this. As part of those deliveries, we provide text notification of the delivery, and just in the last couple of weeks, we're beginning to trial and roll out pre-delivery notification. We'll be looking to take this nationwide soon enough. And that completes our weekly cycle. In terms of that nationwide coverage and capacity, as I touched on, we're a business that delivers to in excess of 86% of New Zealand's population. Part of the reason we don't deliver to more than that is driven by cold chain and our focus on making sure that the food arrives to the customer fresh, but also in a condition that doesn't compromise food safety. We have 3 assembly sites currently, 2 in Auckland and 1 in Christchurch. Of the 2 in Auckland, our main one is in Mangere and Brigade Road, and we're currently undergoing the process to take the volume that's packed at our second assembly site in Auckland in Highbrook into the Brigade Road one. So we're consolidating our North Island footprint. In Christchurch, our assembly centre is new and purpose-built, and we've had that in play for around about 12 months. At both of the Auckland and at the Christchurch assembly centres, we've recently implemented new picking technology, which I'll speak a little bit to later in the presentation. My food bag, in terms of meal kit, has 3 key meal kit brands, and you can see those on the presentation there. A hero brand is My Food Bag. We've recently gone through a repositioning exercise of My Food Bag, and we've very much given it focus around simple, healthy, and delicious. And that's been represented in the tagline, Dinner Done Better. Fresh Start is our brand, which is focused around health and wellness. This is a product that works particularly closely with nutritionists and has calorie-controlled meals. And the premise of Fresh Start is that it supports customers who have a real goal or a real purpose around their eating. They may want to lose weight, for example, or they may want to reset their dietary requirements and eat a more healthy lifestyle. Our third meal kit brand is Bargain Box. This is New Zealand's most affordable meal kit. And this is a brand that provides quick, affordable, and tasty meals that particularly are appealing for family households. Supporting the three meal kit brands is our ready-made meal proposition, which we've called Made. Made's been in the market for about 4 years and works both as a direct-to-consumer subscription model, but also as a complementary offering to the meal kit brands, with Made ready-made meals available for My Food Bag, Fresh Start, and Bargain Box. We also have a selection of add-on items, which we've branded the My Food Bag Kitchen. This is currently accessible as a meal kit customer. And on a weekly basis, we have over 150 different SKUs that customers can browse the catalogue from and select items. And this is across a range of different categories. One of the big focuses for My Food Bag has been around ESG. And what you can see there is a number of initiatives that we've rolled out as a business over the last year, focused around packaging, improving and reducing our environmental footprint, supporting our community, and also a focus around food safety. So turning now to performance. My Food Bag is a profitable business that over the past 10 years has delivered in excess of 125 million different meals. You can see there over the past 4 years, our revenue turnover is somewhere between 150 and $194 million. And the associated EBITDA is between $16 and $34 million over that period of time. In terms of the most recent financial year in FY23, which ended on the 31st of March, we did revenue of 175 million and associated EBITDA of 18.2 million. The average order value in FY23 was $130. This is excluding GST. So every customer that took a delivery on average spent about $130 with us. Our gross margin sits at 48.4%, and this has been reasonably stable over the past couple of years, which is a real credit to our team, particularly dealing with high food price inflation, which has been coming through, along with other inflationary pressures around fuel and labour and so forth. In terms of customers, on average, we interact with around about 60,000 unique customers in any given quarter. This does fluctuate. And you can see there that at the end of the FY23 financial year, we had 57,500 active customers. An active customer, by definition, is somebody who has taken at least one delivery in the preceding 13-week period. So they may take one delivery or they may have taken 13 deliveries, but the rule is they've taken at least one, and we count them as active customers. And in terms of distributions, in the last financial year, we paid out 3 cents per share. In addition to the financials, I just wanted to touch on some of the things that we deployed through FY23. We implemented picking technology in our 2 key assembly centres in Mangere and in Christchurch. And this has been a big step change in terms of customer experience and productivity. Associated with that was our ability to step change our choice offering. We've provided our customers with a lot more flexibility and a lot more meal variety that they can purchase from us. We saw Bargain Box grow, particularly in the second half of last year, as we gave that brand more focus and we built its awareness, with active customers up 12% year on year. We also expanded our kitchen offering, which helped drive up average order value as more customers engaged with the kitchen and purchased items on top of their meal kit. We introduced a new packaging solution called the Cooler Box to improve recyclability and also our customer experience. And we continue to invest in our culture and capability to strengthen and build retention. But like a lot of Kiwi businesses right now, one of the things that we have seen pull back a little bit on is our demand. And associated with that, we've taken action to make sure that our level of fixed cost in particular is right sized for that level of demand profile. I've talked a lot about scalability, but the inverse of course applies when you see lower demand. and that diseconomies of scale can affect business. So through the first half of this year, we've taken action, as I say, to take fixed costs out of the business. Earlier in the year, we completed a restructure of our non-operational staff, which resulted in the number of permanent heads reducing by just over 10%. The implementation of the PIC technology not only provided a step change in customer experience, but also allowed for greater productivity with the ability to reduce the number of hours required for temporary labour used on the sites. We've also been looking at our corporate overheads, and some of the action we've taken there has included the removal of our dual listing on the ASX, right-sizing our lending facilities to reduce the likes of line fees, for example, and we also paused our company-wide employee share ownership scheme. We've been keeping a keen eye on our marketing spend, in particular very focused around driving further efficiency and effectiveness of that spend. And then, as I touched on earlier as part of the business background, we've more recently made the decision to consolidate our North Island footprint and shift the volume that was packed at our Highbrook site completely into our Brigade Road Mangere site in Auckland, so as to remove fixed costs associated with this. We expect this process to be completed by the end of September. Our business has got a strong focus around growth, and I've talked a lot about growing active customers. That's very much the premise for our direction going forward. And the way that I articulate that growth of active customers is simply about being more relevant. And relevance comes through delivering flexibility, greater convenience, and ultimately offering great value. 4 pillars in FY24 to support this growth in active customers. First of all is around building the awareness of Bargain Box. Bargain Box is New Zealand's most affordable meal kit, and we have made concerted effort to grow the awareness of this brand, and I'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. The second pillar around growing active customers is about embedding flexibility into our customer offering, expanding recipe choice, and providing our customers with the ability to not only choose from more recipes, but customize those recipes themselves. Reinvigorating Fresh Start is the third pillar there. So our focus on a health and wellness brand. We know that there are underlying trends backing promotion of health and wellness products in the market. We've got a great product in Fresh Start. So we've put concerted effort into sharpening the message around this, including things like our customer journey and also the offering, recently introducing a full day offering. Fresh Start is a brand that particularly thrives in the second half of our financial year as consumers start to think about summer and changing their lifestyles to accommodate more of an outdoors environment. And then our fourth pillar around growth is around our kitchen offering or our add-on range, and continuing to grow the size of that and the categories in which we are a part of is a focus for the business. Now, underpinning this growth is our continued priority around productivity. Productivity in terms of getting more out of the fixed baseline, but also reducing that fixed baseline. And I've touched on some of the initiatives that we've taken there to support that. So just deep diving a couple of things that I've touched on. Bargain Box affordability. This for us is about providing a competitive advantage in the market. We've seen growth in Bargain Box as we've grown the awareness of this brand. Earlier in the year, we went out with a focused campaign to educate Kiwi consumers that Bargain Box is a product that when we completed a 12-week study was on average 4.4% cheaper than shopping at Countdown and New World online. We also matched this by committing to a price freeze so that Kiwi consumers would have more certainty around their weekly food spend. And that price freeze has been in place since around about March and committed to be in play until the end of November. We've also made an effort to increase recipe choice on Bargain Box to provide those consumers with more choice and more offering. We've seen good resonance of this and good uptick from consumers out there, which has been really pleasing to see. The other piece I wanted to talk a little bit more specifically about was around enhancing our customer experience by embedding flexibility as part of our offering. As part of the implementation of the picking technology at our assembly sites, we were able to scale up the number of recipes that consumers could choose from any given week. And you can see there from the bar graphs that step change across 3 brands that has occurred. We now offer over 60 unique recipes in any given week. And as I touched on, within those 60 recipes, consumers have the ability to customize them. So they might upgrade their proteins, for example, or they may make add-ons to complement those recipes. And what we know is that by providing more recipe choice, we're likely to see improved average order value, and that customers are likely to upgrade to an extra night or two because there's greater appeal in what they're being presented to them. We likely see greater order frequency, and that customers are less likely to skip, and that they see recipes that appeal to them and more likely to take a delivery in their upcoming week. And we also see broader appeal in terms of the recipes that have been offered. And that allows us to grow our active customers as we provide more diets and more offerings out there to suit different consumer preferences, which was all really encouraging. Pick to Light was very much a supply chain transformation for My Food Bag. This was a project that we as an organisation got behind over a 12-18 month period, and we went live with in the earlier part of the calendar year. We partnered with the European vendor to bring in the latest version of their Pick to Light technology, and we've deployed that. And what's been extremely pleasing to see is the step change in our quality and picking performance that our customers are experiencing. We see less errors in terms of the product, and that's been fed through to us in terms of less customer credits and complaints coming through our call centre, but also in the likes of our Net Promoter Score when we look at service, quality, and some of those other measures. So really good to see this underway, and we're continuing to build on this and learn from this. I want to conclude by just touching on meal kits, particularly in the current economic environment. In terms of our growth focus, we're absolutely determined to grow our active customer base. And we've got 4 pillars to do this, and we're continuing to communicate why meal kits are relevant in the current environment. Health and wellbeing is very much an underlying trend which we sit at the heart of. We source locally, we prioritise healthy, quality, nutritious food for consumers to enjoy at home. And we do this across a wide range of taste preferences and price points to suit different consumer preferences in the market. We have a real focus around sourcing locally, working with local suppliers to bring the freshest and best of Kiwi produce and product into New Zealanders' homes. We also are continuing to push the differences between our 3 brands in the market to make sure that more Kiwi consumers have a greater understanding of what Bargain Box, My Food Bag, and Fresh Start represent. My Food Bag is a well-known consumer brand. It's been around for 10 years. We've interacted with over 300,000 different customers over that period of time. We've got a nationwide supply chain that services the majority of the country. We've got scalable systems in our packing facilities that allow us to continue to grow. We're focused on growing our active customers, and that will very much come about through continuing to drive flexibility, offering greater convenience, and of course, reinforcing the strong value that we represent. So with that, I'll finish and I'll turn it now over to your questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Great presentation. Very informative. I can tell you a lot of questions came in and you've addressed a lot of them. There were questions around demand, growth, competitiveness against supermarkets, and how you're addressing all that. And one question that is interesting that was in the slides is about, ESG, carbon emissions, and you mentioned electric delivery vans as part of the distribution. Is that something that's out there or being implemented? And can you talk a little bit more about that? And then finally, how do you get the word out about all the competitive things you're doing with the marketing spend being so careful? I mean, how do you prudently and strategically kind of do that? And then I'll leave it there.
Cool. Thanks, Doug. Yeah, look, ESG for most organisations is a very strong focus, and we're certainly no different. In terms of that conversion away from petrol and diesel to an electric fleet, there's two-pronged approach. we have a small number of our own fleet that we're currently in the process of converting over. We've, in the last 12 months, purchased a couple of electric vehicles, delivery vans, that we're now using for our own local deliveries. But the biggest change for us is around working with our partner, New Zealand Post. We have a strong relationship with New Zealand Post, which dates right back to the start of this business. And we have been working with them towards their goal around 2030 of becoming carbon neutral. New Zealand Post are committed to slowly, over time, converting as many of their petrol and diesel fleet to electric, and they've made some very meaningful commitments and changes around that over the last 12 months in particular, which has been awesome to see. In terms of the marketing piece, one of the great strengths of this business is the fact that it has interacted with over 300,000 different Kiwis over the last 10 years. And what that means for us is that we know who those Kiwis are. We know, what they like in terms of their food, and we know where they live, for instance. So we have a number of owned assets, and that allows us to be very effective and efficient in the way that we communicate with them. On a weekly basis, we send in excess of up to 1 million emails at times, communicating with our customers, either current or lapsed customers, educating them about what's currently going on at My Food Bag, what offers are in the market, keeping them informed of other things as well. And that allows us to be very efficient in terms of using email. We also make use of social platforms as well, across all the kind of key social platforms like Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn as well, as a way to do that. So that's a big part of the way that we can be efficient with doing it, as well as other means in terms of paid media. More recently, being on TV with My Food Bag, Dinner Done Better campaign, and also with Bargain Box.
Awesome. Well, Mark, we'll leave it there. We'll get you more questions, and thanks again for putting all that together and sharing it with us. Yeah, really appreciate it.
You're very welcome, and thank you for the opportunity. Cheers.
Whoops. Okay, well, thanks everyone, and hopefully we've got Jeff Greenslade popping in here shortly. Whoops. Hey, Jeff, thanks for the patience.
No trouble.
We are to our last presenter, and this is Heartland Group Holding, excuse me. And we've got the CEO, Jeff Greenslade, with us, and he'll be going over a few slides just and telling the story. Quick background on Jeff. Joined Heartland in 2009 as the CEO from one of the New Zealand entities that merged in 2011 to become Heartland today. And he has a background in New Zealand and Australia in terms of corporate and commercial banking, worked at ANZ National Bank and in capital markets, and now is here to join us and tell us a little bit about the company. And sorry for the quick introduction, but I thought we would just get to it, and I'll be back with questions. Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you very much for the opportunity to talk with you. I'm going to kick off with the presentation on page 5. Page 5. We've just announced our full-year results, so I'll pick those up along the way. But what I wanted to start with, really, on page 5 is there we are. I think we've got it coming up. Page 5 is talk about what sets Heartland apart. There's a tendency to think that banks are all very similar, they do the same thing, and that's true to a large extent, but Heartland is a different sort of bank, which I want to convey in the course of this quick chat. So to begin with, we are listed, which is unusual. We're the only listed bank in New Zealand, and we also have a joint listing in Australia, so that's quite unique. We have a strategy based around best or only products, products where we can get a leading position, so we don't follow the crowd in terms of products. And our main point of delivery, and increasingly in the future, is through digital platforms. And the thing that we measure in terms of efficiency is our cost to income ratio. So those sort of things set us apart from the rest of the industry. And of course, we're also in Australia. So that is, again, the only bank in New Zealand that has a business in Australia. So turning to page 6, just a bit of a history. Doug mentioned that we started in 2009, post-GFC, a reasonably tough time for banking, but we managed to get ourselves merged with a couple of building societies, a couple of finance companies, and in 2013, we became a bank. Along the way, we learned some very valuable lessons. Firstly, it's tough being a small bank when you have 4 big Australians here that have around about 85% of everything. And what we just decided early on is that replicating what the big banks do, just being a small version of a big bank, was not going to be productive. We had no hope of trying to outcompete them with playing the parochial card, or we're small, therefore, we are better. It just wouldn't work. So we decided to move into products where there was less competition from major banks. We also recognised that because we're small, we lack scale, and we had to find a way to replicate scale. And the pathway to that was, fortunately, around about the same time, was the advent of digitalisation. So technology has enabled us to replicate the scale of the big banks. The other lesson we learned is that we have to be very ruthless about what we will not be, what we can't be. So we closed branches very early. We decided not to be in transactional banking, and we only offer residential mortgages if they are accessed online. During that period, since we become a bank, we have doubled our profit more than 3 times. So turning now to page 7. We have 3 main platforms in terms of what we're doing, how we demonstrate our strategy. One is business as usual growth around these best or only products, things like reverse mortgages, livestock loans, asset finance, and motor, products you typically won't find in a conventional bank. These are the engine room of our growth. They enable us to access higher rates of growth often, and at very much higher margins. We're also very focused on efficiency, as I mentioned, what we call frictionless service at the lowest cost. And what that means in practice is shifting our customers increasingly onto self-service, and that self-service increasingly provided by a mobile app. Now, what we are doing is providing our customers, we believe, with better service. A mobile app is instantaneous. You can access it anytime you like. You don't have to wait in a queue. You don't have to wait on the telephone in order to get the service. You can access it yourself. It also has the advantage of being a very low-cost way of onboarding customers and servicing customers. So first time in my experience in banking, we've got what I believe is best service is also aligned with what is lowest cost, and that is something that we want to do more of going forward. The third element of our structure, or our strategy, sorry, is the ability to expand in Australia. So we are in Australia at the moment. We've got 38% market share in reverse mortgages. There, we're the biggest provider, we're the largest non-bank provider of livestock loans, and we're in the process of applying for an ADI license, a bank license in Australia. And once that comes through, we will have much deeper pool of funding, and we'll be able to broaden our offering in Australia to pick up some of the products that we have in New Zealand, particularly auto finance. So if you go back to page 9, just to give you an idea of what does the strategy look like in terms of balance sheet. So how does our book comprise? And you can see at first glance, we don't look out of place with mainstream banks. We have a majority of our lending into the household sector, and we have about just under 30% in business, and we have around about 14% in rural. So not unlike a lot of banks in New Zealand. But if you dig deeper, as you can see, the nature of the products are quite different. So our household book is made up of reverse mortgages and motor. Business is asset finance and SME lending, and in rural is obviously livestock loans. So in terms of sector exposure, we follow the New Zealand GDP contribution, but the products underneath are very different to what you'd find in another bank. In Australia, obviously, it's just 2 products at the moment, the household sector being the reverse mortgages and rural being livestock. So that's how it looks from a balance sheet point of view. Now just turning to the metrics, so that's the strategy, best running products, digital platforms. That's how it looks on the balance sheet. How is it performing? What are the metrics looking like? Is the strategy working? As I said earlier, we have doubled our profit more than 3 times since 2013 when we started as a bank. Our most recent results, and I'll talk to the underlying results because there's a lot of accounting noise in terms of hedging instruments and fair value adjustments, but the underlying gives you the picture of how the business is performing. So we grew our assets by just over 10% to just under 6.8 billion during the course of the year, and that drove NPAT of 110.2 million, which was a 14.6% increase. So interesting point to make there, interesting observation is that we're growing our NPAT faster than our assets, which suggests that efficiency, that demonstrates that efficiency. And if you look at the CTI ratio, the cost to income ratio, it's at 42%. So the cost to income ratio measures what does it cost us to generate $1. So currently it costs us 42 cents to generate $1. Now, typically a small bank of our size would have a cost to income ratio of anywhere between 65 and 80%. The best Australian-owned bank, or CBA, has a cost to income ratio of 42 cents. So we have the same cost to income ratio as the best Australian currently, which again underpins that proposition that we have used technology to replace scale. So we have the same advantages of enormously a bank that is substantially bigger than us through technology. Our margin is at very high rates compared with the market. It went down a little bit due to a number of factors of competition and not passing on the full increase in deposit rates to our borrowing customers. But that margin is very strong, and that offsets the fact that we do have higher losses at 0.36 or 36 basis points. That would be higher than a typical bank, reflects the nature of our customers, but that increased margin more than offsets that. And that delivered a ROE of just under 12%, which is doing very well in terms of where banks at the moment. And that also reflects the fact that we raised capital in the first half of the year, $200 million, which we haven't yet worked through. So we are in the cycle of having more capital than we are being able to use currently. So normally that would sit around about the mid-12. So that's the sort of the metrics in terms of how the strategy is performing. Looking forward, we really see we have a fantastic opportunity in Australia, and that's another thing that really sets us apart. We've got this 3 areas that we're particularly interested in: continuing the reverse mortgage growth, where we're seeing in excess of 20% growth per annum as that demographic demand for the product continues to come out, and we're seeing great prospects for that market to grow. We also see great opportunities for Australian beef, funding Australian beef, and the demand for that product internationally. Had a tough season this year for weather reasons, and due to the drought in the United States, a lot of animals were slaughtered, so the freezers got filled up. But we see longer term that the market for Australian beef in particular is very strong. And motor finance. We are very excited about the opportunities for motor finance in Australia. It's a much bigger market. There's plenty of opportunity there. We have distribution partners, the same people we have relationships with in New Zealand, so we see a great opportunity there. Perhaps in the interest of time, we'll move towards the cost to income ratio on page 16. Last I looked, we're the only bank that I'm aware of that bangs on about its cost to income ratio. The rest of the bank industry sit in a mix of around about the low 40s, and it's not a major point of differentiation or competition. We see the opportunity for us to differentiate in terms of our performance by decreasing our cost to income ratio. We want to get it down to around about 35%. So how are we going to do that? So what we are doing is we have a number of initiatives underway. Firstly, we believe that telephony is failing. We don't think telephony is working in the banking industry. The wait times for banks in New Zealand are far too long, somewhere between 20 and 40 minutes. That is not good service. So we see that telephony is not the future. Like branches, they have reached their use-by date. It is going to be replaced by internet, online banking, and more particularly the mobile app. Interestingly, 54% of our reverse mortgage customers accessed our website with a smartphone. So that, again, just underpins that the smartphone is becoming the preferred device of all demographics, but increasingly that older demographic as well. We also want to do things like more automation, more digitalization, give our customers the ability to flexibility to choose how they structure their loans rather than having to redocument every time something changes in their life that they need to change the nature of their loan. Causes a lot of work. So we've got a lot of initiatives underway where we believe we'll get our cost to income ratio down to that 35% over the next 4 to 5 years. Turning now finally to the outlook. So before I do that, but let's just touch on sustainability. Something that is very important to us. Environmental sustainability in particular, we're very focused on people and financial well-being, providing reverse mortgages to the elderly demographic. We've got a marvellous internship program for Māori and Pacific school leavers. Around about 110 have come through us. But turning to the environmental issues, where do we stand? We are starting to adopt the right sort of measurement standards so we can understand more about our own footprint. Our own footprint decreased quite considerably over COVID, like everybody. It's now come down to more normalised levels of reduction, but we were pleased to see 17% of our own footprint. We are using these measurement tools increasingly in terms of our credit decisioning to understand sustainability, particularly in the rural and residential sectors where things like inundation are becoming more of an issue. And of course, our contribution in terms of what we're doing to make a difference, we see primarily is through the electrification of the fleet, and we were pleased to see that the amount of new generation vehicles that we financed in the last financial year had doubled. So finally, turning to outlook, racing against the clock here a bit, Doug. So we have a guidance range of 116 to 122 in terms of underlying, and that will come from business as usual growth across those products: reverse mortgages, motor, asset finance, and livestock. We're looking further forward. We aim to, as a management sort of aspiration, we aim to double our profit within 5 years. That's something, as I said, we've done 3 times already. So that is our goal, which will come from normal organic growth, but also through obtaining a license in Australia, getting a boost in terms of growth that will deliver. We've also will gain from taking costs out through the cost to income ratio initiatives. And finally, as we've done in the past, we will look at responsibly at acquisitions as a means of contributing towards that doubling of profitability. So I'll stop there, and I think bang on time, and happy to take some questions.
Oh, sorry, I was muted there for a sec. No, Jeff, you're good. We're all right on time, and you've got a loyal following here. The numbers picked up when you started. So there are a few questions, just kind of around the competitive landscape. You touched on a little bit, but how do you view things like open banking and interest rate uncertainty and rises and all that in terms of shaking up the competition? You guys have used digital and mobile well. Is that something that you think is going to become more prevalent from your competitors?
Yeah, so the interest rate environment has impacted everybody in a number of ways. So it's hard to manage interest rate rises, to pass it on to your borrowing customers and observe social responsibility. So, for example, in some of our reverse mortgage books, we've decided not to pass on the full amount and take a little bit of margin contraction because we think it's the right thing to do, and also stimulates more volume. So we're seeing in Australia in particular, you're seeing a lot of the non-banks struggling because they've got floating rate cost of funds, so that's gone up, and they've got fixed rate loans. So you've got that sort of margin squeeze happening there. So it is shaking up the industry. What it's doing to the customer base, we saw increased stress coming through the small business sector, where costs going up and GDP going down did cause some stress. Perhaps some of those that had been struggling with COVID and then faced with the post-COVID environment found it difficult. But the recession that we're in is a shallow one, and hopefully it's a short one, and then we'll get through it. There's, for our motor book, which is the area again of in the household sector, its performance is very closely correlated to unemployment as opposed to interest rates. So we do see arrears go up as costs of servicing the loans go up, but in terms of losses, it's more employment related, and unemployment stayed stubbornly low, defying all expectations. The reverse mortgages are very much sit outside of all of those economic conditions. They continue to chug away, very low loan to value ratios, so very much insulated against both increases in rates and any impact on property prices.
Yep. One more question I'll ask you here, and then we'll get you some more. You mentioned a cap raise and having a cash on hand, and then talked about acquisitions. Are acquisitions something that you guys will actively pursue in terms of hitting that, the growth you're looking for and the doubling of profits? Will acquisitions be a big part of that?
Yeah, so we have always looked at acquisitions, and during our sort of 10-year period of being a bank, we've made 3 reasonably sizable acquisitions. So we're selective, but yes, we do look. At the moment, it's fair to say that we see the opportunities more in Australia than in New Zealand for acquisitions. There's nothing on the go at the moment, but it is something. It's part of our strategic toolkit is to look at acquisitions.
Yep. Well, Jeff, thank you very much. A great presentation. Very much appreciate the time and energy to put that together and share it with us. And we'll get you more questions. We'll get them out to the group. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll be back soon with another group of companies to talk. So thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.